Hello, BookTube. I'm pretty sure that everyone who watches this channel watches Michael K Vaughan's channel, but just in case you didn't see it, there is another BookTube event coming your way, as if your calendar wasn't already crowded enough with BookTube events, and it's a winner. And since it's coming from Michael K Vaughan, you can probably guess what it is. It's Cimmerian September. This September dedicated to reading Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. I'll leave a link to Mike's video where he talks about it just a bit. The goal, at least one goal, one possible goal, would be to read all of Robert E. Howard's stories in September. And Michael K. Vaughan holds up this volume, The Complete Chronicles of Conan. This was put out by Goodreads, and it's dedicated to L. Sprague de Camp and Karl Edward Wagner. And it's a big thing. It's 900 pages long. And for me, this volume, it's the kiss of death for me to have a thing like this. I'm going to destroy a thing like this if I try to use it. But for me, it embodies how wonderful BookTube can be. Because some of you will remember the booktuber Jason Harrigan, who once had a channel, once had a gigantic book room lined with books, and over his shoulder in one video once I saw this book just sitting there, and I remembered it from my days working in a bookstore when we got it to sell, and my reaction to it was, you would destroy that if you got it yourself, so don't bother. But I lost it after it on Jason's video, and he sent it to me. All the way from the west coast of Ireland to the next parish over. He sent it to me here in Boston. I was astounded by the generosity of that, just astounded. And then one of you, a viewer, found a paperback copy. Jason sent me a hardcover, like the one in Michael K. Vaughan's video. One of you found a paperback of that at a library sale and sent it to me. So I sent the Jason's hardcover to Mark Richardson, who had also coveted having a copy of it. It's just the way that we are in this little corner BookTube, where we are always on the hunt for things to give to each other. It's a lot of fun. This, of course, supplanted for me two other versions of Conan. One was, I think, Ballantine or Del Rey came out with a 3-volume set of illustrated trade paperbacks that even when they were coming out, I was thinking, all right, well, this is clearly meant to be definitive. In terms of a popular trade paperback edition of Conan, you have to get all three. The Coming of Conan, the Bloody Crown of Conan, and the Conquering Sword of Conan, I think, are the 3 volumes. And they're all beautifully illustrated, original black and white illustrations all throughout. And before that, there was the Conan volumes put out by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter that introduced, I think, a lot of people of a certain age to the Conan stories, where they learned about them from those mass market paperbacks with their Frank Frazetta covers. And so really there are 3 types of ways that you can encounter the whole body of Robert E. Howard's Conan work. This is all in one volume. The L. Sprague de Camp, Lynn Carter books, I think, oddly enough, despite the fact that they introduced so many people to the world of Cimmeria and to the adventures of Conan, I think they're really now only for Conan aficionados. I think even Conan fans would say that's not the way you should introduce someone new to the Conan world. It should either be the 3-volume paperbacks, or it should be this. And one of the points that I want to make about this as a reading project is that this is 900 pages long, and it's all of what Robert E. Howard wrote for Conan. That's 30 pages a day. That's doable in the month of September. That is doable. Believe me, 30 pages a day when it comes to Robert E. Howard writing Conan is not going to be a burden. You could actually get through all of this. There'll be days when you'll want to read a lot more than 30 pages of this just to keep burning through it. And I don't know for Cimmerian September. I am really tempted, actually myself, I am really tempted to reread all of those L. Sprague de Camp, Lynn Carter volumes that are Robert E. Howard, but they also aren't. They were Frankenstein by those two and by other hands that joined in later on in those volumes. And I haven't actually sat down and reread those volumes from start to finish the way I so eagerly consumed them originally. I don't think I've ever done that since. So that is tempting, to read your way through the whole of the Conan corpus. But I kind of have another idea in mind I think for Cimmerian September, I would kind of like to read all of the original Marvel Comics run of Conan, the comic books, which are written by Roy Thomas, who I have been cheesing off Robert E. Howard fans for a long, long time, 50 years, by sort of blandly maintaining that I think Robert E. Howard understands the character of Conan better, that Roy Thomas understands the character of Conan better than Robert E. Howard does. Certainly, I think that even when he's not adapting Robert E. Howard's stories, Thomas tells a better Conan story. Maybe because he's just a better writer. Certainly, he's a better pulp writer, although I don't think he ever wrote for the pulps. I think he came along too late for the pulps. He'd have been a titan in the pulp world if he'd coincided with it. Whether or not that's heresy, I'm strongly thinking that what I want to do for Cimmerian September is not reread the Conan short stories by Robert E. Howard, but rather to read my way through the original Marvel run on Conan the Barbarian, and maybe even Savage Sword of Conan. That would be a huge amount of reading to do, even for me to do in 1 month. The Conan the Barbarian ran in Marvel Comics for well over 200 issues, and the Savage Sword of Conan also ran for well over 200 issues. That's a lot of comics to read through. I don't know. I don't know. I'm leaning towards doing that. I haven't done that in years. Not in years. I think I remember when I did. I think when Marvel canceled Conan the Barbarian at issue number 200 and something or other. I think back then I had all of the print issues. Now it would be a tablet. But back then I had just stacks and stacks of Conan the Barbarian comic books. I had them all. And I think when Marvel canceled Conan the Barbarian, that was the last time that I actually marched my way through every issue from number 1 all the way through the weak spots, the strong spots. You do a comic for that long, you're going to have plenty of junk. And I think I did that then, even though I wasn't exactly weeping any tears that Conan the Barbarian was canceled. It hadn't been good in a long time. So I wasn't sorry that it was canceled, and that's to say nothing of the Savage Sword of Conan, which had not only been not all that good in a long time, but had been unbelievably wretched many, many times over many years by the time it was canceled. Even though there was a brief period, Roy Thomas worked best on Conan, in Conan the Barbarian and in the Savage Sword of Conan, with the artist John Buscema. And there was a period where Buscema came back to the Savage Sword of Conan and did some really interesting work. But even then, I don't know. I think I want my Summer of Cimmerian. I'm hoping this will be the first time that we do this, not the last time. But I'm thinking that I want to give it a distinctly comic book feel. So I think that will entail just reading all of the comic books, all of the original comic books. Not Marvel lost the rights to Robert E. Howard, and they were lost for years and years and years. Where I think it was Dark Horse did some really good Conan work, and then Marvel got the rights back just a few years ago, and it caused Conan fans to quake in terror of what Marvel Comics has been, to use the current phrase, Marvel Comics has been institutionally captured by ideologues who hate comic book readers, and they hate men. And that made lots of Conan fans just tremble in fear over what they would do to Conan the Barbarian. Surely they would introduce a whole bunch of female sidekicks who would save him and best him at every turn. And for a while, that didn't look like it was happening. And for a while, coincidentally, the Conan titles did well. Then it did start to happen. I mean, a leopard can't change its spots. That's why I'm always, whenever it seems like the ideologues who are in charge of these intellectual products, whenever it seems like they're changing their spots, I always just assume, no, that's not the case. You cannot change. You need to be fired. If you're anywhere near this thing, you are going to warp it for your Twitter politics. You have no choice in the matter. You can't restrain yourself. And you don't know how to tell good stories anyway. So you'd have to, even if you didn't do that, you would still have to be fired in order for somebody to come on board, maybe Roy Thomas, and write good stories for these intellectual properties. So it changed pretty quickly, and Marvel lost the rights to Conan. I don't know if there's any connection there. Maybe they just weren't. Maybe they just wanted the rights long enough to do expensive hardcover reprint volumes that will make them money, that would make them the money they need to cover the cost of owning the franchise. I don't know. Marvel did a whole bookcase full of ornate, well-produced hardcover reprint volumes for Conan the Barbarian and the Savage Sword of Conan. I would not be using those. They are 100 pounds a piece. This is just one slate of plastic and glass that I have every Conan issue that was ever done. I'm thinking that's what I'll do. I don't know. We've got time. I thought I would make this video in addition to, I'll leave a link to the video that Mike did, to let you know, just in case you didn't see his video, that September might be the time for you to become intimately acquainted with one of the immortal characters of English language fiction. There aren't many such characters like that. There aren't many that you could put on the same level of Tarzan and Sherlock Holmes. Conan is one of them. And maybe you only know Conan from the movies or pop culture references. Maybe you've never read any of the original work. The amazing thing about the original work is that you could get it all done in 1 month. And then you'd be done. You'd have read everything that Robert E. Howard wrote about his signature character, which is Conan the Barbarian, not Solomon Kane. Okay, so if you REH hipsters could kindly zip it, that would be great. His signature character is not Solomon Kane. Let me repeat something to you that your parents should have repeated to you the minute you went down that path. No one cares about Solomon Kane. Okay? Good. Now that we've got that covered, I just thought I would signal boost once again this sort of thing, that we are reading Conan in September and it's going to be a whale of a time. So I'll wrap this up for now and I'll be back. Thank you.